Okay, good evening. Tonight's Amud is Daf Yud Daled Amud Aleph 14a. We are up to, I believe, the two dots, which are the first wide line on the Amud. The Gemara asks the following question: Ba'minei Ashiyan. That was the guy's name. His name was Ashiyan. We have a bunch of interesting names on this page. At the top of the Amud, we had a guy by the name of Achi, and here we have someone by the name of Ashiyan. Who was he? He was a Tana Debei Rav Ami. He learned by Rav Ami. Rav Ami was his Rebbe. He learned in Rav Ami's base medrash in his yeshiva. So he had a shaila. He asked him the following question. So it reads like this: Ba'minei Ashiyan Tana Debei Rav Ami Mei Rav Ami. So he was a student of Rav Ami. He asked Rav Ami the following question: Hashari Batainis, a person who is in the middle of a fast. Mahu sheyitom. What's the halacha if he wants to taste some food to see what it tastes like? So he's cooking food for after the fast, and he wants to know if the food tastes good, can he taste it or not? And the Gemara explains, Achila v'shtia kabel aleh, v'haleka. He accepted upon himself not to eat any food or drink anything. V'haleka, he's not eating or drinking, he's just tasting something. Odilma, or maybe hana kabel aleh, maybe he's just accepted upon himself any type of pleasure. V'ha'ika, this is certainly a pleasure that a person experiences when they taste food. Amar Lehi responded to him and he said, Toem, he's allowed to taste, ve'ein bekach klum, no problem. You can taste it, there's no issue. Tane nami hachi, the Gemara goes on and says, we have a brayso that says the same thing, mat emes eina tuna bracha. A similar concept, a person is just tasting food and not eating it, and does not need to make a bracha. V'ashari batainis, a person who's in the middle of a fast, Toem, he can taste, ve'ein v'kach klum, and there's no problem. Now the Gemara asks, ad kama, how much can he taste? Rav Ami, Rav Asi, tamu ad shir reviyasa, they would taste up until a revius. Now it's important to point out two things. There's two tosfos in that are very important on this Gemara. Tosfos at the bottom says, O Dilma hana kabel aleh. That means in the question that he was asking, he explained, we're trying to analyze what this person accepted upon himself. Now the reality is that most fast days, it's not really your choice. It's not like you accepted upon yourself the fast. It's a takanas chazal. Either it's a takanas chazal, Yom Kippur is an issur midaraisa. So what does it mean he accepted upon himself? So Tosfos explains that this whole discussion about tasting foods really is only relevant to a fast day that's voluntary. He accepted upon himself. He says, Hai lishna mashma, this term makes it sound like, it indicates, the Mayri B'tainis Yachid Shekiba Alav, B'tainis Hakasuv Lo. Any one of the fasts that were actually instituted by Chazal, it's not relevant. You can't taste food on a regular fast day. And then Tosfos makes another point. What does it mean to taste? Next Tosfos says, Toem, B'emekach Klum Pirush Bein Chanano, Shechozra Polet. He spits the food back out. So it's not like he's eating a little bit and it's okay because we're just calling it tasting. If you're eating, you're eating. Tasting just means you put it in your mouth and you spit it back out. So any real hana that anybody had from this Gemara says, oh, you know what? You can taste. Really, it's not. It's pretty much just a teaser. But it's not even so much relevant to a regular fast day anyway. Gemara goes on. Amar Rab, kol anosein shalom lachavero. Someone who gives shalom to his friend, so it seems like the terminology is actually very specific. A person uses the word shalom to greet somebody. Kodem she'espala, before he davens, ki'ilu asa obama. It's like he made his friend into a foreign mizbeach. Shenemar, for it says in the pasuk, what does the pasuk say? Chidlu lachem mina adam asher neshama bi'apo ki bameh nechashev hu. The pasuk says, what is this person? With what are you giving honor to this person? And the Gemara explains, Al tikri bameh. Don't read it as with what? Ella, rather bama. Rather bama nechashafu. You are considering this person to be like a foreign mizbeach. In other words, the first thing a person should do when they get up in the morning is to daven to Hashem. This person feels like it's more important to go ahead and to give greetings to another person instead of Hashem. The person is ultimately making a foreign mizbeach. Now the Gemara goes on and explains. Shmuel said the same thing. Rather, he explained it from the same pasuk, just more simply. He said, "Bameh chashavto lazeh v'lo lelekas." He doesn't change the nekudos. Doesn't say you have to make the word mean a bama. It just means, why are you giving more respect to this person than Hashem? The Gemara says, hold on a second, we have a problem with this. Masr Sheshis. Baprakim, if a person, we learned before, that if a person is between paragraphs of Kriya Shema, Shoel b'pnei hakavod umeshiv. He can greet somebody and respond. Now, Kriya Shema is before Tefillah. It's before Shemon Esrei. So how is it even possible that a person could go ahead and extend a greeting to somebody else during Kriya Shema? The chronological order of davening always has Kriya Shema before Tefillah. So if it's true that it's so bad to give shalom to somebody before Tefillah, before Shemon Esrei, how is this whole discussion even relevant? Gemara says, Rav Abba explained, B'mashkim lepischo. He explains, he really changes the whole thing. This means a person gets up early and before going to shul, goes out of his way to go to someone else's house to go ahead and greet them. That's inappropriate. But if you're walking into shul and you see somebody, of course the appropriate thing to do is to say good morning. The Shulchan Aruch talks about this, the term that's used in Shulchan Aruch is tzafra demari tav. But again, it's appropriate. You can give someone a quick good morning. That's very different than a person deciding, you know what, before I go to daven, I'll go visit a friend or go to a meeting. Now, whether or not this line in the Gemara is here is controversial, but let's just read it anyway, because in parentheses we'll read it. Amr Rav Yonah. Rav Yonah says, Amr Rav Zera, the name of Zera, Kol ha'oseh chafatzav kodem she'ispalel, person who does his business before tefillah ilu bana bama. It's as if he built a farm mizbeach. Amar le bama amrit. Really? You're actually saying it's like building a bama? Amar le lo aser coming. I just mean it's forbidden to do that. And he goes on to explain Ukod Rav Idi bar Oven, similar to what Rav Idi bar Oven said. Di Amar Rav Idi bar Oven. As Rav Idi bar Oven said, Amar Rav Yitzchak, the name of Yitzchak bar Ashian, the son of Ashian. So you see, this family was busy with that. It could be. It's interesting because I was actually wondering what this Gemara about tasting food in the middle of a fast is doing here. It's like random. It could be, now that I'm reading this, that once we were talking about Bar Ashian, so we quoted something earlier that was said. I'll have to look around to see if there's any other explanations as to why this Gemara comes in here. Maybe it has to do with the fact that you're interrupting your fast, similar to interrupting Krishma. I'm not sure. Either way, he said, Asr lo la'adam lasos chafatzav kodem she'ispalel. It's prohibited for a person to engage in his business before he davens. Shneimar, for it says in the pasuk, tzedek lefanav yahalech. Tzedek, the righteous thing to do is to, before lefanav, in front of what he's doing yahalech, he should go v'yasim l'derech pa'amav. He should do his business later on the road. A person who indeed does do his travels after he davens, HaKadosh Baruch Hu osa lo chafatzav, Hashem will do his business for him. Shenemar, for it says, tzedek lefanav yahalech, v'yasim derech lefamav. So there's two things. If a person does his business before tefillah, it's a very bad thing. It shows that a person is giving precedence to his business. And if a person davens first, the person has a bracha that Hashem is going to bless their business. So it's a worthwhile thing to do. Amar Rav Yonah, Amar Rav Zera, Kol ha'lan, the Gemara continues, Kol ha'lan shivas yamim, a person who sleeps for 7 days, below chalom, and does not have a dream ever during those 7 days, nikra ra. It's called a bad circumstance. Shenemar, for it says in the pasuk, Visaveya, or Visova, I'm not sure what the nekudas are, it means he'll be satisfied. Probably Visava. Visava yalin bal yipaked. And the pasuk is talking about a person who's satisfied and is not remembered, ra, will be bad. Now the Gemara says, al tikri sava, don't read it as he is satiated or he is satisfied, ella sheva. So it's a play on words. It means he'll sleep 7 days and not have a dream. That's bad news. Now I just will point out, the Aruch HaShulchan already wrote, and many others have written, and nowadays we don't make much of a deal about dreams. Most of our dreams we only have because of things that we think about during the day, and a person should not really get too hung up on dreams. And I would extend that to this also. The Gemara, again, the idea is, if a person doesn't have a dream for 7 days, it's kind of like a Kadosh Baruch Hu who's not speaking to them. I don't encourage people to make too much out of their dreams. I mean, it's not a good idea in general. I have had people come to me to ask me what to do with certain dreams. I always just respond and say, listen, I'm not Yosef. Maybe one day I'll become a dream interpreter, but just not yet. But either way. Amalei of Achav Reder of Chia Bar Abba, Ravacha, Breder Rav Chia, the son of Rav Chia bar Abba, said, Hachi Omer Rav Chia, Omer Rav Yochanan, Rav Chia said in Rav Yochanan, Kol Amas Bia Atzman B'Divrei Torah. The way to understand the pasuk is a person who satisfies himself with Divrei Torah V'lan and goes to sleep. Ein Mivasrin Oso Besoros Ros. He will never have any bad news in his dreams. Shenemar, for it says, B'Sava Yalin Bal Yipakid Ra. A satisfied person who goes to sleep will not be remembered for bad. There's nothing more appropriate to learn that Gemara with this group. This is a share we're learning at night. Hopefully everyone will go to sleep soon. Person satisfies themselves with the Limud Torah that they have this evening. It should be a Shmira. Kadosh Baruch Hu should not give any bad news to anybody. Gemara goes on. It says, Elohein Bein HaPrakim. In the Mishnah, we analyze what's considered Bein HaPrakim. Amar Rabbi Vo and Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Vo said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Halacha Rabbi Yehuda. Halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. What did he say? To Amar, Bein Elokechem le'emes v'yatziv lo yafsik. The Mishnah seemed to have indicated in the first opinion that after Hashem Elokechem and then emes v'yatziv, a person can interrupt. Rabbi Yehuda said, no, you can't make an interruption there. Amar Rabbi Vo and Rabbi Yochanan, my time at Rabbi Yehuda. What's the reason for Rabbi Yehuda? The Chsiv, Yudal Amavez, 14b at the top. It says in the pasuk, V'Hashem Elokechem emes. Sorry. The Chsiv, V'Hashem Elokechem emes. Because there's another pasuk that says Hashem Elokechem emes. And if you're going to stop where you say just Hashem Elokechem, it sounds like you're intentionally just omitting emes, which obviously would be a terrible thing for a person to intentionally omit the truth of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore we always want to connect emes with Hashem Elokechem. Now the Gemara asks, if a person says Hashem Elokechem emes, Choser v'omer emes, o eino choser v'omer emes. Do you have to then say Hashem Elokechem emes, emes v'yatziv? Amar Rabbi Vo, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, choser v'omer emes. Yes, you say emes again. Rabbi Amar Rabbi says eino choser v'omer emes. You don't have to say it again. Our minhag, as we know, is we don't say it twice. We say Hashem Elokechem emes and then v'yatziv or v'emuna. There happens to be a question whether a chazan should say it twice. Again, the general minhag is that the chazan does say it twice. He finishes Hashem Elokechem emes, and then he repeats the last line, Hashem Elokechem emes, but the Mishnah Berurah brings down an opinion that says you should not do it. I can't say one way is better than the other, but in Mishnah Berurah, if I'm remembering correctly, says the minhag olam is to say emes twice. Hahu denachis kamei de Rabba. There was this guy who came before Rabba, and Shamei Rabba to Amar emes trei zimni. You heard him say emes twice. So he said Hashem Elokechem emes, and then emes v'yatziv. Amar Rabba said, Call emes tafsi lahai. This guy is very busy with emes, and whenever he has an opportunity to say emes, he says emes. I don't know. Rashi says like he had this tendency of saying emes. I don't know if he was giving you a compliment or he wasn't giving you a compliment. That was his comment. His comment was, this guy seems to be very obsessed with emes. It sounds like a pretty good thing for a person to be obsessed with emes. The Gemara continues. Amar Rav Yosef, Kama Maila Hai Shmaita. This Shmaita, this brisa was something which was really beautiful. The Chi'asar of Shmuel bar Yehuda Amar, he said the following. Amri b'marava, Arvis, in Marava in the evening, they would say, Daber al b'nei Yisrael v'yamarta aleim, which is the last parsha in Kriya Shema. They would say, Daber al b'nei Yisrael v'yamarta aleim, and then they'd skip everything in the middle and say, Ani Hashem Elokechem emes. So very short. The last parsha of Kriya Shema was very, very quick. V'yomar Hashem Moshe Lemar, Daber al b'nei Yisrael v'yamarta aleim, Ani Hashem Elokechem emes. So Amar Abaya, Ma'amar Yusuf, what's the big deal? Why were they so excited about this? What's so exciting about them skipping the whole parsha of Kriya Shema? He goes on to ask, V'amarav kahana amarav lo yaskil. Don't start the last parsha of Kriya Shema. However, v'im hiskil, if you're going to start, gomer, you got to finish the whole thing. Now, there's a very important lesson over here. No one says you always have to start something, but once you do, make sure to do it right. Now, v'chitem, if you're going to say v'amarta aleim lo v'yaschala, just saying dabra b'nei Yisrael v'amarta aleim is not considered starting because you haven't gotten too far. V'amar Shmuel bar Yitzchak amarav. Dabra b'nei Yisrael, lo havi yaschal. If you simply just say Dabra b'nei Yisrael, that's not considered starting. Why? Because there's many times throughout the Torah where it says Dabra b'nei Yisrael. So it's not an indication that you started this parsha. You can just say, Dabra b'nei Yisrael, ani Hashem Elokechem emes. That's fine. But however, v'amarta aleim, when you repeat v'amarta aleim, Haviyaschal, that indeed is a starting. Amar Papa Kasavri b'Marava v'Amarta Aleim Nami Lo Haviyaschal. In Eretz Yisrael, they are of the opinion that saying v'Amarta Aleim is not considered a starting, and therefore Ad de Amar v'Asu Lem Tzitzis, up until saying you should put on tzitzis, that those words in the pasuk you should make tzitzis, that is not considered starting. Amar Abaya says Hilkach Anan us Aschuli Maschalinon. We start it. The Kamaschali b'Marava. In other words, we want to follow what they did in Eretz Yisrael. Since in Eretz Yisrael they started, so therefore we do the same thing. We say, V'yomar Shalosh Lemar Tabel B'nei Yisrael V'amarta Aleim. However, V'kimadas Chalinon, we who don't live in Eretz Yisrael, we consider that a star. Therefore, Migmar Nami Garmina, we say the whole parsha, the Amor of Kahana Amarav, Lo Yaschel Hislo Gom. In other words, we want to emulate Eretz Yisrael on the fact that they started it, but we don't want to copy their minhag of not saying the whole parsha. We consider it starting as if you said the first few words, and therefore we say the whole thing. The Gemara, just a few more lines. Chia Barav Amar, he says, Amar Ani Hashem Elokeichem. This is talking about the evening. If you say Ani Hashem Elokeichem, Tzarach Lomar Emes. You have to add on the word Emes. However, Lo Amar Ani Hashem Elokeichem, if you're not going to say Ani Hashem Elokeichem, Eino Tzarach Lomar Emes, you don't have to say Emes. In other words, you could go all the way up until Ani Hashem Elokeichem. If you don't say that last phrase, you don't have to say Emes. The Gemara says, how could you skip all of that? You have to mention Yitzias Mitzrayim. In other words, if you're telling me that you're not going to say Ani Hashem Elokeichem, you don't have to continue with the next paragraph, which is Emes v'Emunah. In other words, he's making that paragraph of the Emes, the Emunah calls us v'Kayim Aleinu, that paragraph. He's telling you if you don't say Ani Hashem Elokeichem, you don't have to say that paragraph. If that's the case, you're not going to mention Yitzias Mitzrayim in the evening. V'boilat kure Yitzias Mitzrayim. You have to mention Yitzias Mitzrayim. The Gemara says, the Amar Hachi. He'll say the following: Modim anachnu l'cha Hashem Elokeinu. We are very thankful to you, Hashem Elokeinu. Shotzei sanu Mitzrayim uftisanu beis avadim vasisa lanu nisim ugures alayam v'sharnu l'cha. So in other words, he's saying mentioning Yitzias Mitzrayim doesn't have a specific script or specific text you have to say. These people, they said the first half of the parsha, they did not end off with Ani Hashem Elokeichem, therefore they omitted the whole paragraph of the Emunah Kolzos, as we started, which is really Emes Emunah Kolzos. They skip all the mention of Yitzias Mitzrayim in that paragraph. So what are they going to do about the fact you have to mention Yitzias Mitzrayim in the evening? Big deal. They came up with a little paragraph that they would say. We'll stop here for this evening. Have a wonderful night and a Freilich and Chanukah.